Hi, my name is Frank Schaefer. I am an author and commentator. My books include novels like Portofino, Saving Grandma, Zermatt. My nonfiction books include Crazy for God, Why I'm an Atheist Who Believes in God, Keeping Faith, a father-son story about love in the United States Marine Corps. I grew up in an evangelical background. I fled that background. I've been involved in both Republican and Democratic politics. For 40 years, I've been on the progressive side of the equation when it comes to commentary. But I would like to make a few observations now that really are non-political and more about what makes us happy, how we find joy, what life is really about. And of course, part of that is political as well. One thing I think we can all agree on, whether we voted for Trump or for Biden or whomever it might be, is that the old order around us is crumbling. And yet the shape of the new order has not yet emerged. I don't think anybody can claim that they know what comes next in our country and in the world. That doesn't mean that we are in a time of particular crisis. So the first thing is, be comforted. We are in a very normal moment of history. Nothing strange is happening. A populist wannabe dictator is trying to take over our country. Populist wannabe dictators have been trying to take over big chunks of the world since the first hunter-gatherers emerged from some desert 100,000 years ago. The idea of strong men standing up and trying to claim authority and leadership is not new. Don't panic. We've been here, we've done that. We're still here. Democracy is still here, still thriving in big parts of the world, as are our individual lives. That's not the old order that's crumbling. What's crumbling around us is certainties about directing our lives according to nature and evolution and what actually works for human beings, rather than imposing political ideologies, religious, secular, or otherwise, on what is actually the normal flow of human life. The normal flow of human life is dictated by what we actually are as biological creatures, biological machines, as I like to put it, but who look weirdly upon the world with spiritual eyes, seeking meaning in our lives. That's the old order that's crumbling. The idea that marriage is normal and that most people will marry. Most people will marry within a time when fertility is working in their favor if they want to have children. The people who choose not to marry will live in a stable society shaped by family and community. These things have crumbled around us. Huge chunks of our society are growing up in single-parent households that all serious studies show is not a good way to start a childhood. More and more people are delaying parenthood even though they want to be parents. I'm not talking about people who don't want to be parents, but those who want to be parents are, because of the shape of our commercial landscape, the demands of our jobs and corporations and education, finding themselves in a kind of a twilight of fertility where they have waited to start a family so long, perhaps under the illusion that people in their 30s and 40s can start families because you read about it all the time and you meet people, but not understanding that the odds of being able to have the number of children you want or conceive easily go away for both men and women. This is not a criticism of any individual choice. This is just a fact. Our communities have dissolved in ways that would be inexplicable to anyone in another part of history. We send kids off to college in some faraway town. They never really come home. The average American moves 7, 8, 9, 10 times for career choices. It is considered normal to have a girlfriend but then break up, or a boyfriend and then break up, because of the demands of your job, and you both don't want to move to another location because your careers are driving you apart. And then people wake up in their 30s and 40s unattached and lonely and wonder what happened. I think it is time for us to take a deep breath, and not in the light of politics or ideology or feminism or gay rights or trans rights or any of the other things that have become kind of watchwords to ideological slivers and segments in our society, take a look at who we are as people. Let's start in an unexpected place. To be gay is normal. Men and women who are born gay are not choosing some weird lifestyle rooted in 20th century politics or the hippie movement or the left or the right, but rooted back into the dawn of time when homosexuality, not a choice, but an actual way one is born in terms of sexual attractiveness to others, is as much of a thing as heterosexuality and sexual attractiveness to an opposite sex. Transgender is not some new invention. There have been trans people around since Roman history was written down. In Satirica, for instance, that records huge numbers of gender neutral or gender undefined or trans people by whatever name they were called, drifting in and out of Roman society is a normal part of life. The same in Greece, the same in every period of history. So the first thing to say is that our so-called sexual revolutions have not been sexual revolutions at all. They have simply been recognition of the human rights of people who have been with us from the beginning. So when I talk about the dissolution of normal, I am not talking about the rise of the recognition of gay rights or gay marriage or trans rights, which simply restore to normality what has always been there. This is not a new phenomena. This is no more new than heterosexual relationships or having children or families is a new thing. This has always been with us. What is new is the idea of delaying love, whether that is gay love or love between trans individuals and others, or love between heterosexual couples, as I experienced with my wife, Jeannie. We've been together 53 years now. I got her pregnant when we were 17 and 18. I do childcare for 3 of my youngest of 5 grandchildren every single day. It is the best part of my life. I told Jeannie this morning, I said, look, my favorite role is not father, not husband, not writer, not political commentator. My favorite role is the one I've stumbled into unexpectedly in the last 25, 30 years, and that is of grandfather. I enjoy the role of being a grandfather more than anything else I've ever done. It is the single most fulfilling thing in my life that I've ever found. Who would have known that if I go back in my youth, in my 20s, if someone had said, look, nothing you're going to do between now and when you have your first grandchildren and invest time and energy in them is going to mean as much as that does to you. I wouldn't have believed that. Well, I don't expect any young person to believe me now, but perhaps you will be lucky and discover that for yourself. But anyway, that said, and that, by the way, is not a footnote, it's what I'm talking about. And that is that whoever we are, gay, straight, trans, married, unmarried, single, a parent with children, with no children, deciding to have no children. Lots of people don't want any children for good reasons. They've had terrible family experiences, or they have a health issue or a psychological issue, or they're so dedicated to the career that they think they would just make a bad parent. Whatever, fine. But whomever we are, I have a piece of advice for you. If this old guy can offer you something, and just like you wouldn't listen to my joy of grandparenthood and think, oh, this has nothing to do with me if you're younger, you probably won't listen to this either. But on the other hand, as an older person and a grandfather, I do feel a sense of responsibility and compassion for people, I believe, who are being misled into hollow, lonely, unhappy lives. So may I just make an observation? And that is, whomever you are, a married gay woman to another gay woman, a married gay man, a heterosexual man like me, my age, I'm 71, or a young person just starting out with a girlfriend in college and you're not sure you're going to commit or not commit, whomever you are, may I offer a piece of advice? Reject the lie of corporate career culture. Reject the lie taught in every single American university that is preparing you for career, but not for life. Reject the lie that what defines you is your career, the amount of money you make. Reject the lie that you should move, if it makes sense for your career, away from community and family, and instead embrace a biological fact of evolution that is inarguable, and that is that we are communitarian beings, that our joy depends completely, 100% on the quality of our interpersonal human relationships. that anybody who moves away from a girlfriend and won't commit to her because he has a job offer somewhere and he lets that relationship perish and thinks that somehow he'll find satisfaction in that job is a fool. Because in the long run, excuse my language, it's just a fucking job. But in reality, in the same way that I've discovered the greatest joy of my life, the role that I have most enjoyed, quote, playing in every sense, because we play our roles, and sometimes they really represent who we are at our deepest level, and sometimes it's fake. But when those two things come together, the role we play represents who we are at our deepest level. Therein lies a good life, no matter who you are. If we sacrifice that reality for any promise of material gain or status related to career, related to politics, related to just causes even, taking to the streets, protesting, yelling and screaming, thinking we're changing something, and yet our own life is dissolving into the inner chaos of loneliness because we have sacrificed what matters most, not because God said so, there may or may not be a God, not because your parents said so, they may or may not have been right, but because evolutionary biology teaches us this, that from the beginning, from the dawn of our evolution, and we can see this in other species as well, by the way. If you own a dog, as I do, Zip, dogs long for community too. Humans long for community. And when we smash community, whether it's a community of two, a lover leaving another lover for a better job in San Francisco when you're living in New Jersey, when you smash the community of possibility and delay parenthood when you've decided to be a parent because you've got some crazy idea that you need to own a house first or be in an apartment of a certain size or a certain level of income, or you wouldn't dare do this because you don't want to give up anything. God forbid, live in a one-bedroom apartment instead of a larger place because you're sacrificing because it costs money to have a child. So you put these other choices first. Smash a marriage because you run into a few bad years, so you get divorced. When if you had pushed on through, you could have maintained something of the relationship. Had a political argument with a parent or a girlfriend or a boyfriend over who they voted for and smash that relationship and walk away from it because, God damn it, you think it's more important not to vote for Trump than to vote for him. And so you can't allow yourself to fall in love with this girl from an evangelical fundamentalist background because you're a lesbian activist on the left. And God forbid, you don't want to fall in love with her, even though she's just coming out, and you love each other because her politics is different than yours. And you allow that politics to get in the way of the relationship. You've made a stupid choice. All our evolutionary history teaches one lesson. The only reason you and me are here, the only reason you're hearing me talk now is because someone in my ancestry cared enough to pick me up when I had a broken leg 10,000, 30,000 years ago somewhere. When my ancestors were broken, someone took care of them because there was a community. They hadn't all moved away for a better job in New Mexico or to Florida because they don't want to shovel snow anymore, so they're not living next to their grandchildren anymore. Oh yeah, older people do this too. This is not just directed at the young. You feel judged and criticized because of what I'm saying? Sorry. But I'm telling you the truth. And the truth is that every decision we make in life that puts anything ahead of our human relationships, the interpersonal relationships, is a false choice. Why do you think a lot of people like my son, John, who joined the Marine Corps, find in the Marines a community that they don't find in civil society? It's nothing to do with military discipline. It's because those committed to a common cause, willing to sacrifice for each other, the guy next to you, the girl next to you who has your back. These experiences forge people for a lifetime. It's why you see Marine bumper stickers on the cars of old Marines who are in their 70s and 80 years. And they were only in the Marine Corps 4 or 5 years, maybe in combat, maybe not, but they never forget that level of camaraderie, because that is what we are all looking for. And that is what we sacrifice when we move away from a girlfriend for a job. That is what happens to young men who don't commit because they have sexual activity with all sorts of people. You don't need to wait till marriage anymore. That's old hat. But there was one good thing in the old system. and that is commitment was taken seriously. If Jeannie and I had walked away from our relationship during the very hard years when I had to seek psychological counseling to get through my anger issues because I had been raised to be an asshole by divine right, by patriarchal parents who thought that men should be in charge of the women they married, that discipline should be quite harsh and stern to children, and all the rest of the things I had to reject, the illness that I inherited in my view of the world from fundamentalist Christianity that had to be rejected to put Jeannie first as a human, and my children first as humans, and my grandchildren first as humans. This wasn't some new lesson. This was simply me returning to an evolutionary model that has worked and is why we're here. So let me just cut to the chase and say we're going into an uncertain future, and no one has shaped its course. And we have elections, and we have wars, and Hamas attacks Israel, and Israel decimates Gaza, and Russia attacks Ukraine, and rape becomes a method of war. These things have always been with us, and they will always be with us. And we can work for peace, and we can work for a green, better future and ecology. But if you're an activist and you're out there working for a better ecology, the only reason to be working for that is that the quality of the relationships in your life will be better, and your compassion for others will be more real if we are not destroying our planet. Otherwise, nothing makes sense. So to trash a relationship so you can go work on a good cause, to drag the people we love into lives they don't want because we are so committed to some politics or religion, is to get the cart firmly behind the horse. In fact, it's to drop the cart on the horse and kill it, in terms of the cart and the horse metaphor. So can I urge you, whether you are of the left or the right or consider yourself a liberal, that if you reduce all of life to ideology, say war against the patriarchy if you're a feminist, or trying to enlighten people about racism and reducing everything to not just patriarchal discussions, but racist discussions, or the idea of the white race and hegemony over developed or undeveloped countries, colonialism, neocolonialism. If you're allowing all this talk and all this stuff and all these causes to fill you up with the idea that this is what's important in life, these fights are the most important, you've forgotten something. And that is the only evidence we have of a human soul is not that there's an afterlife. Nobody knows if there is one or not. It is that the people we leave behind carry the memory of us. And the memory of us is not about our activism and when we were right politically or how we voted. It's in the kindness and the connection we shared, and the compassion, and the real things in life. A granddaughter who texts me and says, I haven't seen you this week. Let's go to lunch together. Satisfaction I have making love to a woman that I've been with and loved and who's forgiven me and cared for me for a whole lifetime. And yes, it's about the sex and the orgasm, but it's about a lot more than that. It's about every shared memory and looking through her eyes at the world. And gender disappears altogether. It wouldn't matter if we were a gay couple or a trans couple. There is something more important than politics. There is something more important than career. There is something more important than religion. There is something more important than belief. There's something a lot more important than career and education, which they're not teaching anybody in colleges these days. And it isn't the job you get, it's who you are. And who you are is completely defined by your relationship with people. And if that relationship is jeopardized by anything you are doing, any career ambition, any achievement ambition, any monetary ambition, like these young couples that just seem to me to delay and delay and delay in commitment because they have this checklist of these cool things they have to do first. I feel so sorry for them. When I look back and realize that no matter how long I'm with Jeannie, life will not be long enough to love her to the extent that I want to love her. Oh, it'll be long enough to have any career I want. It'll be long enough to make any money or lose any money or live in a great place or a lousy place or own this shit or no shit at all. But the only thing I fear in this life is the first morning I wake up and Jeannie's not there. Selfishly, I hope I go first. And the only time I know that I am completely alive and filled with joy is cooking a meal for my grandchildren and having them as easy as breathing just come in and out of my house every day. And having a 13-year-old grandson who walks out the door and then opens it and looks back in and says, I love you, Ba. Because he forgot to say goodbye the way he likes to say goodbye to his old grandpa. There's more in that moment than any book I ever wrote, believe me, or some cool trip I took. And to lack the ability to make a commitment to get that real part of your life started is the dumbest decision you can make. Gay, straight, trans, doesn't matter. We're all in the same boat. Tell the culture around you, get lost. Be truly countercultural. Put your relationships first. That cool, sexy job, screw it. This young woman loves you. Stick with her. Oh, maybe there's somebody better out there. I can do another cool thing first. I want to travel first. Okay, good luck with that. Life's short. My name is Frank Schaefer.